Welcome to the Instagram Stories for Monday, March 3rd. I'm your host, Daniel Hill. Before we get into the questions and answers that we normally do on Mosseri Monday, I am going to ask a favor. If you have been listening to the show for some time and I've brought you any kind of value whatsoever, could you please take a moment and leave a review? Please pause the show, go leave a review. You can find the link to leaving a review in the best place possible on Apple Podcasts. You can find the link to do that in the show notes. If you could just write a couple of lines about why you like the show, that would really help other people to find it. It's been quite a while since I had any new reviews. I like to play the new reviews on the show. If for some reason you don't want yours played, that's totally fine too. But I would really appreciate the encouragement. It lets me know that you out there are listening and that you appreciate the hard work that I put into the show. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear from the head of Instagram with answers to questions like, how do I make sure I'm not missing my friends' content on Instagram? And what's the right mix of personal and professional content to share? All that and more on today's episode. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Welcome back. Let's get into the questions and answers from the head of Instagram. The first question, what's the right mix of personal and professional content to share? I'm actually very interested in his answer to this question because recently my wife and I have been making some personal content together for Instagram, and I've been posting it and mixing it with the professional content. I don't know that that is necessarily the best move. I used to say, share yourself, your personality through your posts. People will just like what they like and skip what they don't like, but sometimes I think that's kind of a confusing message. For instance, if you were to watch a TV show, you expect to see the same kind of content from that TV show every time you watch it. If one week it was about dancing and the next week it was about chasing aliens or something, you would be like, this is a very inconsistent show. I don't like this TV show. So I am leaning toward maybe potentially having separate accounts or some other way to segment those two particular avenues. Here's Adam's answer to the question, what's the right mix of personal and professional content to share?
No perfect mix. I think you got to figure out what's going to resonate with your audience. Some people find that sharing a lot of personal content can really make them more relatable or approachable, and that works really well. Other people find that their audiences are just interested in what they professionally produce, and everyone's audience is different. So I'd encourage you to experiment and see what works.
The challenge is, what do you do when the experiment reveals that, for instance, everyone who follows you prefers your personal content? What do you do with your professional content then? Should you stop making it? Should you make a separate account for it? I am leaning toward the concept of making a separate account in that specific case and using Reels trials to boost that content to non-followers so they would have the opportunity to find you. That's my thought. Let's go on to the next question. How do I make sure I'm not missing my friends' content? Well, you have the option to favorite the friends' content that you absolutely must see, and then make sure that you go to that favorites tab in the home screen, and then you can just see a collection of all the posts from the people who you favorited. That would be the best way to ensure that you don't miss any of your friends' content. Here's Adam's answer.
Best way to make sure you're not missing friends' content, and by the way, we don't want you to miss friends' content, we try to rank it highly, is to add them to your favorites list. And if you do, we will do our best to show it at the top of feed anytime you open up Instagram and they have actually posted something recently. You can also, if you want, turn on notifications and be notified every time they post as well, be it a feed post or a story or otherwise. Hopefully this helps.
His answer was better than mine. I've turned off notifications on Instagram and pretty much every app I have on my phone, so I don't even think about notifications. But if there is a specific person who you really want to make sure you don't miss a single thing they do, you can turn on notifications for every post they make, every story they make, every time they go live, and your phone will let you know. And that truly would be the best way to ensure you did not miss a single piece of content that your friend posted. However, your phone could be going off hundreds of times per day every time they posted a new story. Maybe you don't want that, or maybe you do. That's up to you. The next question is a little bit confusing. It says, sharing collab posts to stories. You can, in fact, share a collab post to a story, so I'm not 100% following this question.
I didn't realize that you can't seem to share your collab posts to stories, so I will talk to the team and try to figure out how to fix that.
I don't know why he says that. I made a collab post with my wife earlier today. It was a reel, and then I shared it to my story so people who follow me would definitely be more likely to see it. Maybe I just don't understand that question at all. Let's go on to the next one. How do you decide when to remove a feature? Good question.
Removing features is tough, but honestly, I think we don't do it quite enough. Generally speaking, Instagram is too complicated, so we need to find opportunities to remove features when they're not used by that many people or that larger percentage of people. When they're adding a lot of complexity but not creating a lot of value for the overall Instagram community. So we try to identify those opportunities and then turn those features off from time to time.
It's interesting. He said not providing value for the community as opposed to not many people using the feature. I actually thought that's what he would have emphasized a little bit more. The next question has to do with watch history. It says, will you please add some kind of history tab that we can see reels that we accidentally clicked away from? This is a very good point. So if you were on Instagram and you liked a reel, you can go back and see all the content that you've liked ever on Instagram. You can scroll back through that history. It will probably take you hours, if not years, but you can do that. However, there's no real way to see all the content that you just viewed. You can do that on TikTok. And in fact, you can search viewed content, which I really like. So if you saw a video 3 days ago and you remember what it was about, but you don't remember who made the video, you can type in what it was about and then say that you watched that video. And you can even put in the time that you think you watched that video approximately, past week, month, whatever, and then you can find it more quickly. Instagram doesn't have anything like that if you didn't like the piece of content.
It's a good idea to be able to go see the history of things that you've watched in case you wanted to go back to something because you clicked away or you got on with your day. I like this idea. So also I'll talk to the team about this one as well.
Okay, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear answers to the questions. Does having an older Instagram account have any advantage over starting a new account? And why are my followers growing in countries other than the country I live in? Stay tuned. Welcome back. Continuing with the questions and answers from the head of Instagram. The next one, does having an older Instagram account give you any advantage versus starting a new account? Good question. I would say that having an existing account might be better because there were people who chose to follow you at one time and they may still be interested in what you do and what you're about. However, if you start a new account, they're probably not going to know that you did that and they're still following your old account.
So if you're asking if you start a new account, does having an older account help in any way? No, it's just you're starting new and fresh. If you're asking whether or not you should start a new account or continue to work with an old account, it just depends. Starting new just means you got to build your followers from scratch, and starting with your old account allows you to start from a bit of a bigger base. It's totally possible to reinvent, redirect, or evolve your account forward. So I would encourage you to try that first before starting from scratch. But some people find starting from scratch is a nice, clean, easy break and a way to get started on a new direction.
I would say it's better to keep the existing account and rebrand, but that's just my opinion. Next question. Why are my followers growing more in other countries than my own? That would be an indication that your content is resonating very well with people from other countries for whatever reason. Maybe you're doing it in the language of that country, or there's some trend that is very popular in that country and you're making content along those lines. Or it could be just that's where the bots are coming from. That could be.
This is actually quite common. It's because no matter what country you live in, there are more people who live in countries outside of your country than in your country. And that's true on Instagram, right? There are more users who could potentially follow you outside of your country than in your country. It's a great thing. I think it shows that you are creating content that is compelling or speaking to a broader audience. And that's one of our core value propositions as a global platform, is to allow you to reach a really broad audience.
That is good logic. There are more people in all the other countries combined than the country you live in. Yes, I 100% agree with that. Let's go on to the next one. What makes a story do well? Is it watch time? This person is asking, what are the metrics that Instagram is looking at to determine if a story is something that they should be sharing with more and more of your audience?
If a story does particularly well, it's probably not because of watch time. That's not an important signal in stories ranking. It's about, do people tap on your story, and do they like your story, and do they reply to your story? Those are the top three signals we look at.
Okay, so let's just go back on what he said. If they tap it, for instance, there's a sticker of some kind that you tagged with the restaurant that you were at or the museum you were visiting, and they tap on it to see what that place is all about or where it's located. Additionally, if they like that story, which they can tap the heart icon at the bottom, or they replied to the story. So those are the metrics you want to keep in mind. And the last one we're going to do today, how are you coping with loss of moderators on the platform? What have been the downsides? This is a very complicated issue, so I'm going to let Adam talk about it.
We actually haven't reduced the amount of moderators we use for the platform, at least in any way that I know about. I think you might be referring to the third-party fact-checking program. That program was actually one that I worked on personally and helped to build, and it just didn't scale very well. We fact-checked roughly 100 things total in the entire country of the US per day. And so what I'm hoping for with Community Notes is to move to a program that scales to a much larger number of people and focuses more on misinformation and scams and the type of content that we want to make sure that we reduce the prevalence of on our platform.
Okay, that is going to do it for today's episode. As always, thank you for listening. Please leave a review of the show if you have not. It would really mean a lot to me, and you can get there directly from the link in the show notes. Be sure to come back next time for more social media news, strategy, and other things that you need to know.
Let me tell you a couple things that you should know about me. A product manager, but do not have a bachelor's degree. But actually that's factually a fraction of me. And other fractions posting content irregular and irrationally. Still probably won't get a job at the Gram. They forgot, they don't know, or don't care who I am. That's why you never see me at the parties and events. My lack of followers must make me irrelevant. Don't have a course, a book to sell to make a bag of grand. Not a social media marketer, don't represent any brands. Plain to see, don't have an agency. But I got a lot of spam, just putting in my work without the glitz and glam. Won't catch me eating fish unless it's shrimp or clam. No six pack, no risk that, there's a gym card in my hand. Don't have a full-time job, but I got a lot of plans. Stay plotting, dropping knowledge on TikTok and Instagram.